Good evening, everyone. It's Josh here at Horror Hangouts. We have another great episode for you tonight. Tonight's guest is an author of over 60 books, actually, and he's also a Bram Stoker Award nominated novelist. And he's also done podcasting as well. So I'd like to introduce everyone to a good friend that I met on Substack, Jake Bible. Hi, Jake. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Josh. Thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
Excellent.
So tell me one thing. I was like looking on your little bio on Substack. In fact, I'm going to put your page right here in the comments section. They're already in the show description. So right there for any of you that want to subscribe to Substack, you can certainly, that's where you can find them. But anyhow, mention something called the Drabble novel, or I see sometimes the Drabble Fridays or something like that. Explain what that's all about.
We'll start with a basic definition of a drabble, which is microfiction story, but it's exactly 100 words long.
Okay,
so it's not 99, not 101. You hit that 100 words. You got to hit it exactly. And I had discovered that when I was first getting back into writing and wanted to start professional writing several years, almost coming on 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
And it was a great way to it's a great exercise. I mean, you write only 100-word story. It's got to have a beginning, middle, end. I mean, it's a story, so it needs to have some basic structure. But what it taught me the most was self-editing, because you're like, oh, well, I don't really need that word or those words, or actually this line of dialogue could be completely cut and not change the tone of what I'm trying to go with. So you learn editing really well. And after I sold a few short stories and then actually sold some drabbles to the Drabblecast, which is a podcast of just drabbles and short stories that they do, short fiction, I crazily decided my first novel would be a drabble novel, because no one had ever done that before. So I just was like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to invent it. And so I wrote Dead Mech, which is the quick tagline is you've got 500 years into the future. You've got mechs saving what's left, what's grown out of civilization from the still roaming zombie hordes. But the question is, what happens when a mech pilot dies and becomes a zombie in the mech? You got a dead mech there. So high concept. And I had no idea how to write a novel, but I knew how to write drabbles. So I literally wrote 136,000 words worth of drabbles. Do the math, take off a couple zeros. That's a lot of drabbles. And I actually wrote them all out. I would edit, get it to 100 words, get it to where I wanted, print it out. And I literally have a stack. The original printed manuscript is like that long, because every page I printed out a drabble. And then I went through each chapter and started mixing them in, almost in a Burroughs kind of way, cut up, fiction, and then put the sentences back together. Each drabble was a part of a different scene. And so I would probably have in a chapter, well, I had so many characters, there would probably be 6 or 7 scenes going on, and I would just rotate them through. And so you'd read 100 words of someone, and then it'd go 100 words to a different character, 100 words to a different character, 100 words back to another character. And it's slightly jarring in the beginning. And that's what all of the reviews were. It's a little jarring in the beginning. But once you get into it, you forget what's happening, and it starts moving so fast because you're going scene, 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 scene. It's very cinematic because it's like quick cuts. It's almost like a George Miller Mad Max kind of thing. He's good about boom, 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 this side, but you bounce it. You're going from this to that. And so that pace really gave it an energy, and people responded to it. And I ended up podcasting it for free, because iTunes was starving. This was 2007, 2008. iTunes was starving for content at that time. and this was before Kindle. So there was really, unless you had a blog, there was no way to digitally put your book out there. And I grew up a theater kid. I've always been a, narrator kind of. I love reading. I was like, I know how to do it. I knew GarageBand. I had a Mac. And I was like, okay, let's make this happen. And so I podcast it. And that's when all of a sudden, kind of my career, I started getting a following, fans, people noticing other authors at that time, and really kind of built something. At the end of it, I had over 1 million downloads of, those episodes. And that's really kind of how I started. So Drabbles have always been a part of my basic foundation, and I never wanted to give them up. So I started doing Friday Night Drabble Party. And that's every Friday. I write a Drabble, throw it up. I used to have WordPress blog. I'd throw it up on there. Now I do it on Substack, and I've been doing that for quite a few years. God, I've been on Substack 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Like basically one of the first years they started. I was like, oh, okay. Because, they were offering a newsletter for free. I'm like, well, that's better than the $25 a month I'm paying for MailChimp.
Well, and I was going to say off of that, I mean, I was on someone else's podcast a week or so ago, and we had talked about why I came to Substack. It's because, well, I'm paying $25 a month to whoever to put out a website that no one's watching, I'm getting no views. And I figured, or why don't, and a friend of mine, another author, she had just started getting on Substack, told me about it. I'm like, well, I thought about it a long time ago, so why not? So I kind of use Substack a little bit in a way, kind of like you said, a newsletter, keep people informed on stuff. Plus I can throw in other articles and posts, whatnot. So yeah, it's much more useful than getting a website. And like I said, it's free. So
yeah, exactly. And I mean, like my website that I have for, all my writing and everything, I've still got a free WordPress. I've just learned how to jimmy it so it doesn't look too janky. But then I really redirect a lot of people to Substack because that's really where I'm hanging out. And I'm barely, if at all, on social media anymore, just because I wanted to stay sane. And so Substack is really how I communicate with the world and communicate with fans. And so every Friday, I still put out a Friday Night Drabble Party. And I write that Drabble first thing in the morning on Friday. I do not prep it. I don't have a bank of Drabbles. I write it, do it. It's whatever's in my head at that moment. Build my post, set it to launch at 6, and boom, I walk away from there. But the Drabbles I think have been very important because they keep that editing skill going. So yeah, if anybody's out there and they're like, how do I even get into this? How do I break a short story? How do I do anything? Start with 100 words and then play that game. Make sure, you're going to go over or you're going to go under or whatever, get it to exactly 100 words. Do that a bunch and you'll understand structure. You'll understand how to edit yourself. You'll understand how to, get stuff out there. And it doesn't take that long. It's an easy way in to fiction. So
I may have to try that technique. It sounds interesting because that's the toughest part about. You'll probably agree with this. This was going to be one of my questions was, what do you think the toughest part of writing is? And for me, it's editing, and something like that would probably improve my editing skills as well. So as I go forward for future projects, I may try that technique and seeing how that I plan on writing an anthology with a series of short stories that might work perfect for me.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, no, it definitely has helped me with editing. And it has, I know a lot of people will just puke out a draft, puke out a story, and then go back and edit. I edit while I write because that's just kind of the flow that I was always in. I'm like, I know I'm going to have to cut those lines because this is going to be way over 100 words, that kind of thing. And so I apply that same philosophy, whether it's short fiction, long fiction, novels, whatever. I edit while I write. And if I've stepped away a little bit, I start from the beginning. because I got to get back in that flow. I've had that happen where
Mm.
35,000 words into a novel, and I had to, whatever reason, take a week off and walk away and then come back. I'm like, I'm starting at the beginning and reading what I wrote so I can get back into that head is one thing. Remember what I wrote so I'm not duplicating the same scene again. And also it can be very inspiring because I'll be like, oh, wait, I could do this and this, and I can help structure things a little better, which will help me finish the freaking novel from there. So, and also cut out stuff. I'm never going to use that. that's the storyline I'm not doing. That character is gone. Thank you. And luckily, it was only in one chapter. I can kill that real fast. We got a whole other thing going. So
rather than like 12, 13, 14 chapters in, then you're like, oh no, now I'm gonna have to go back and change stuff and whatnot.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think you had mentioned you had started writing about 20 years ago. I think you said
it's almost 20 years. 2007. I think 2007 is when I sold my first short story. So yeah, it's 18 years, almost getting up there onto 20 years. I've been doing this professionally. I was always a writer. As a kid, I wrote and wrote and wrote. In fact, I conned my typing teacher, because we had Apple IICs that we were learning to type on, and all the typewriters had gone away. I actually grew up in a Apple, I guess, subsidized, sponsored school district. We were one of the school districts they just gave apples to. So all the computer labs were Apple IICs, and then the first Macintoshes came out and all that. But anyway, so I'm learning to type on one of those, and it's driving me nuts. I'm just like, this is slowing me down.
Right.
And so I actually told my typing teacher, I was like, hey, can I just write a story? Can I just be in here and write? I may not learn how to type, but I will constantly be writing. And she was like, no, you can't do that. And then my homeroom teacher got wind of it and was like, yeah, it's probably a good idea because he's going to get bored real fast. And with the implication, me bored is trouble. So I started writing stories. I had to constantly, if I was working on a long thing or whatever, I had to be writing that same story. I couldn't dick around. I could not. She was on me. I never learned to type though. I was just in my head. Yeah, this is how I type. I can type finger, hunt and peck about 55 words a minute. I type really fast. It sounds like a machine gun in my office, which part of that is also, I grew up with a Underwood typewriter, one of those giant things that weighs as much as my truck.
Right.
It was my great grandmother's. And so that was in my room from when I was like a toddler. And so I would constantly be putting paper in there and just making weird stuff. But those keys, when you're 5, you got to put some force behind getting that to actually make anything on the page. So unfortunately, poor keyboards later of all my computers have suffered from that muscle memory of I'm just brutalizing. I'm just pounding away.
So you started writing at an early age. Why did you decide, this is what I want to do professionally? What triggered that in the first place?
So I did the family route first. I did a lot of sales. I was doing all kinds of stuff. And then I was managing customer service for an e-commerce natural product site. And in there, you're chained to your desk. So if there's no emails and no phone calls, it's not like you can go help out. You have to wait for the emails and phone calls. So I was reading like 2 novels a week. Because if we were doing our job, no one should have to call us. It's customer service. So if everybody's making everything smooth out there, it's boring as hell in here. And I realized, God, I'm reading 2 books a week on this. Maybe I should get back into writing, because I was writing so many emails and so many things, correspondence, customer service stuff. And so I decided to get back into writing and use that downtime to do that. And I started writing short stories and then sending them off. The great thing was we were in the age of the internet. When I was, a teenager and in high school, and then even coming up through my 20s and mid 20s, the internet still was it was figuring itself out.
Right.
By the time I was 35 and doing this job and ready to start writing, there's online magazines left and right. There were websites all over that would buy fiction. And I'm like, this is great. I can literally get a rejection within 2 weeks as opposed to 6 months, where the old way, you had to mail everything off with a self-addressed stamped envelope so that they could send the manuscript back to you when they rejected you. So you had to pay to be rejected, but just the amount of a stamp, but you're still getting paid to be rejected. And that's part of writing. I mean, 90% of being a professional writer is dealing with rejection. And because it's just, whether it doesn't mean it's bad, it doesn't mean it's good, it doesn't mean anything. It means it's not the right story for that whatever website, magazine, that editor, that whatever. They didn't connect with it. And I figured that out, and I would get a rejection right away and go, write a different story or send that same story off to somebody else. And the internet allowed me to do that at a speed that my mind worked, not at the mail something off and then literally wait. I mean, I did that in my late teens, before turning, into my early 20s. And I just got frustrated because I remember a year later getting a rejection. I'm like, this is, you just took a year of my life. What the heck? And so, the ease of everything, of technology, and the fact that I had downtime at work. So that's where I started writing my first novel. Was at work, still doing that. And I wrote a second novel. I wrote a third novel. I wrote a fourth and fifth novel. So I wrote 5 novels while I was at that job. One of them was Intentional Haunting, which ended up getting a Bram Stoker nomination. But it had never been published before. It wasn't until later. And that company basically got run into the ground. Unfortunately, I was literally the last employee. We actually it was remote work set up at my house, answering phones, doing emails, all that kind of stuff. I had other jobs in the company between then.
Right.
But because of that, I knew how everything ran. So I was the last employee. And then finally, the owner's like, I'm shutting it down. I'm like, okay. And then I'm just like, I need to make a living. And I had my Apex trilogy, which included Dead Mech. I had self-published and wasn't seeing anything from that. There wasn't the infrastructure there for self-publishing as much. You hope maybe someone saw it, but there was no advertising on Amazon. There was you couldn't get Google ads or anything like that at that time. As an author, there were so many layers you had to get through to get to that. So I contacted Severed Press and said, hey, would you like my trilogy? And they said, yeah, this is exactly what we're looking for. They were post-apocalyptic. They were horror. They were getting into military sci-fi. And my series checked all those boxes. And so I had that trilogy with them. And then when the company shut down, I reached out and said, hey, what do you need? What are you looking for? And they're like, we want just straight up zombie novel, a classic. And I was like, Romero-esque, like Night of the Living Dead, like that. We're going the OG on this one. And they're like, yeah, that's what we're looking for. And I wrote Zeburbia. I got laid off mid-August. I wrote Zeburbia. It took me 2 months, not even 2 months, to write that. It was about 75,000, 80,000 words. They got a cover together. They got everything together, launched it in November of that year. So I'm laid off in August. We're kind of eking through the savings. Boom, that hits in November. And that thing was top 20 on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
And it was timing. It's all about luck and timing. Success in publishing. Always remember, all about luck. I had the right book at the right time. It got launched at the right time. It just blew up. And so that Severed Press paid quarterly. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to write the second one. I'm going to write the third one. And by the time the quarter came around for them to pay me, I got enough to keep going. I'm looking at my wife going, I should just keep doing this. And she's like, yeah, do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that for about 5 years. And in that 5 years, I wrote 50 novels. Basically, I wrote one a month is pretty much what it came out to.
Oh, wow.
And except for the summer months, I'm married to a teacher. Summer months are not productive, or were not productive, especially when we had kids and it was just, busy.
Well, you
busy,
got to
busy.
take some time off anyway.
But,
so
yeah, exactly. And so I wrote 10 novels a year. I would 3 weeks of writing it, a week of editing it, and then send it off. And I would get a teeny little advance, but it kept the machinery going, and it kept the algorithm on Amazon happy until they changed the algorithm. This was probably about a dozen algorithms ago for book sales. They've changed it many, many, many times.
Whatever they're doing isn't helping me. That I can tell you.
It's not designed to help any of us. It's designed to help Amazon, which means it's designed for the readers, so they get books that match whatever their personal algorithm are. And it is way more profitable and lucrative for Amazon to go with the big publishers. So that's, it's a whole thing.
It is what
it's the same old story, just different technology.
Right.
Down to. But anyway, that kept me going for about 5 years. But then, Severed Press was kind of my bread and butter, and their business model changed a little. They were just really, they'd always been churning out. They were indie press, churn out books, but they were churning out books and not spending on marketing anymore. And that started seeing my sales go down. So I went back into sales. I was in sales for a good solid year, over a year, and COVID hit. And unfortunately, my sales was retail. I was selling to retailers. There weren't any open. So I got COVID laid off. And during that time, I then also got lucky to start narrating and producing some audiobooks. And that, between that and the COVID, helping checks that we all got, that kept things going and kept the lights on. And then things started going back to normal. And I'm like, am I going to keep this going? I go like, I don't think I can yet keep it going. So I went back into the workforce, and I was director of communications for an ed tech company. And then they merged and things changed, and I ended up video content manager, which I was way more happier. There's overseeing educational videos is a lot more fun than sending out marketing emails. I'll tell you that.
I imagine so, yeah.
So I did that. And what was great about that is we were literally making like 3 to 4 minute mini documentaries on jobs, on careers. And so I was in the storytelling business again, which was great. It was just a different medium. And it gave me, you want to talk about learning editing also, that gave me a whole other perspective of how you take 2 hours, 3 hours, a 2-hour interview, and then 3 or 4 hours of B-roll that they're shooting around that job and everything. You're taking all of that and condensing it down into 3 to 4 minutes. Again, so it taught me story editing even more, but in a kind of different medium, and kind of rewired my brain. And that was just, I did that for a while, did that for about 3 years. And then the whole, if you heard about it, the whole ed tech and then other tech companies went through this whole round of deciding they didn't want humans this much anymore.
Right.
And I was part of that round. And at that point, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I got lucky. Instead of writing novels, I ended up writing short stories for a podcast, a horror podcast. And that's what I'm doing now. Along with other things, freelance, other stuff. But that's my foundational kind of income right now. And so, I've been writing for Dr. No Sleep for almost a year and a half now. And it's been outstanding. It's been great.
What is that one? Is that like on Spotify or iTunes or any of those?
It's on all the podcasts, and then they also put it on YouTube. They'll just throw AI images behind the audio. It's the exact same story in audio that you listen to on Spotify or anything like that. They just throw some images up to put it on YouTube. Some they will animate. They'll say, hey, can you write a triptych? Can you write 3 adventure stories or 3 Chernobyl stories, but only make them about 1,500 words. And then they'll animate those 3 stories into a little thing, which is kind of cool and kind of fun to watch.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, that's where I've been, and I'm writing full time again. I don't know if I could quite go back. It says knocking on wood.
Well, right now, I mean, it's just, you mentioned how easy now it is to self-publish. There's, of course, a million of us doing this. What would your advice be to a new writer who's getting in? Should they try and find an agent to get in with a publisher, or should they just do the self-publishing? Or what advice would you give? Because the toughest part seems to be marketing. But
the toughest part is marketing. Because as we know, the only thing that sells books is word of mouth.
Right.
They can put all the marketing. I mean, New York Publishing, all the big guys, everybody can put all the marketing they want, and a book can still be a dog. If they knew how to market perfectly, everyone they publish would be a bestseller. That doesn't happen.
Of course.
Funny how that is. So yeah, that's always going to be the problem. And that's always how you how your needle in that haystack gets found. That's never going to change, because people are people. The readers, that's who you're dealing with. And if you're a reader, I'm a reader. I know I'm like, you can market 600 books at me. I don't care. I'm reading this book right now. And then I have this to be read pile over there and all of this, so, I mean, I get it. So what I would do, it really depends on who you are and what's your personality. If you are going to self-publish, that means you're not just a writer, you're a publisher.
Right.
Okay. Cover, editing, everything to get that book out. You either have to do yourself, never edit yourself. If you're going to release, your eyes will miss typos no matter what. You are not going to catch it all. You also hear it in your head. And even if you read it out loud, it's your voice. And so you understand it. You always want to get someone, at the very least, get a solid proofreader who is going to look at it and go, okay, yeah, this is great. We changed some syntax here, changed this here, and may say, I don't know what this paragraph means. What are you saying? I don't know how to edit this paragraph. And then you go, oh, someone else is reading it. Yeah. So you can do that also with beta readers. You can have, a group of trusted people, not your mom. It's the oldest joke in the book.
Right.
Unintended. But, people you trust to hand you your butt when you're off track. You want that honesty. So you could do that. Like I said, you become a publisher. So do you want that extra work? The next part is go in with indie publishing, small presses.
Right.
There's a ton of them all over the place. You don't need an agent for 99.9% of them.
Right.
They have submissions guidelines. Some of them have only submission windows for here. Some are constantly taking submissions. You can go to indie small press. And I did small press. I've worked with 4 small presses. I've never worked with a big house before. And so I've worked with 4 small presses, and you can make a living. I did it for a while.
Right.
I unfortunately put all my eggs in one small press basket. That was the problem. So diversify a little in case someone starts to slide. But you go to small press. Sure, why not? There's no reason. Readers don't know unless the cover sucks. And that's the thing. I'll tell you that right now. The old adage, you can't judge a book by its cover. Well, you can judge its sales by its cover in about 3 seconds. You're going to look at it and go, yeah, no. Or you look at it and go, wow, that's actually a great cover. Oh, that's just this little indie press, and they've got somebody in graphic design who's rocking it, or they have the right freelancers, or whoever the editor is understands graphic design too. There's a lot of publishers and editors who don't understand graphic design. So they see a cover and go, oh, that looks great. And then I've had be shown to me before and go, no, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work at all. That looks like my teenage daughter back in those days made that herself as she's learning Photoshop. It's like, no.
Right.
So there's the small press thing. Now, if you want to get into the big houses, if you want New York Publishing, if you want the big guys, the big 4 or 3 or whatever they are now, you need an agent because they don't accept unsolicited manuscripts.
Right.
Bingo. That decides that.
Yeah.
So then you have to go over it with an agent. I had an agent briefly. I haven't since. I've negotiated all my own contracts. I'm good at contracts. So that's one thing. I think if I was ever a lawyer, I would have gone into contract law. It's just a puzzle gotcha game. That's basically what a contract is. And so you just look for the loopholes, and that's all you do. You go, the way that's worded, that could mean this or this. Well, we're gonna clarify that, aren't we? We're gonna nail that down. Does it mean this or does it mean this? And I've had some publishers. I've had a couple books where I was about to be on contract, and I'm like, yeah, this line, that's a little ambiguous, so let's clear that up. Oh, no, that's standard in our contracts. I'm like, yeah, I'm not signing that contract. That basically, you could jerk me around for 10 years after I'm supposed to be getting my rights back based on if it's interpreted that way. Oh, we'd never interpret it that way. I'm like, I don't care. There's no such thing as promises in publishing. There's contracts in publishing. So we're going to change that line. No, that's standard. But okay, I walk away. It's too easy now. I get the emotional part. I understand, and I'm a jaded old timer. Sure, I have been beat up in this business left and right. So I got some armor on me, but I get it's very emotional, and I write fast. So I don't want to say my books are disposable to me, but I'm moving on to the next idea. I'm not hanging on to that one manuscript like a life preserver. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong if people do that. If this is your one book and it's truly your heart and soul and everything in it, you bet you go for it. You do all that. But it's how do I say this without being cruel? You're going to get rejected left and right on that, and finding an agent means if you find someone who gets you, you've got a partner on there. And briefly, I had a partner, but nothing was happening. And then I made something happen myself with small press, and then I went that direction. Yeah. But like I said, I write like crazy. So I was like, okay, this one isn't going. I'll move on to the next one. But if you've got that one book and you may be your only one book and you truly love it and other people love it and you think you got something, go for an agent, find an agent. And that's your book. That's what you're doing. And maybe once you sell it, or get an agent and they're like, this isn't the one, it's the market doesn't want it. They can be good to encourage you to write another one because they're like, you just got to write your next book and maybe we'll revisit this one if we can sell the other one and that kind of thing. It's an emotional roller coaster. You're going to go up, down, left, right. It's going to beat you up. And even if you have someone along with you, an agent with you, it's going to beat you up. And you're going to hope that you get that one editor that goes, I see it. And then there you are. So you can see that's a much harder way to get published. It just depends on what your goal is, and it depends on who you are. So if you're not a publisher and you don't want to do all that stuff that goes into it, find a small press. If you really, really believe in your manuscript and you don't want to just have it lost out there, you want to give it that big shot, go for an agent. And then hopefully that agent will get it in the big thing. So there's no wrong way to do it. No. I still know people who write their books and podcast the novels as they're writing them or before they even publish it or try and shop it and everything because they get so much feedback. And it's a different medium. It's an audio. It's a whole other thing. It's a podcast. At least we're in this point, which is great about podcasting, is if I were to podcast my novel, would it be considered published? Not as much now. In fact, there would probably be more publishers interested because they're like, I like how this sounds. I want to print that, or I want to create the ebook and I want to put it, I want to take care of that. Let's get that out there. I love this. Before, back when I was first publishing or first podcasting, there was that gray area. It was iffy. Publishers didn't know what podcasting was. They didn't know what was going on exactly. So they almost considered it already published in a way, even though it wasn't. It never saw it hadn't, a single word hadn't been printed. But they were like, it's out there. It was like, okay, but now you don't have to worry about that. There's another thing. Okay, that's the other one. Give it away for free. You can always do that. There is Substack. It's not the best for discoverability always when it comes to writers, which is hilarious because it's all writers, because it's all words. Everybody's a writer. And yet for some reason, Substack doesn't quite understand the complexity of fiction writing and realize what they have. And I was talking to him about it, emailing it, years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, when I first started, when they first launched. I'm like, hey, you really need to put an alleyway here for boom, this channel is fiction on Substack instead of everyone having to sort through everything. But you can still do it. You can put it on, just podcast it. You can narrate it. You could edit it. You could do whatever. You could narrate it live. You could do a live stream of your chapter. This is my latest chapter. Boom, 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 boom. Put it out there. There's all kinds of ways you can get yourself out there with your first novel and learn a lot, because your audience, I don't know if you know this about the internet, but people aren't shy to give you an opinion. You will get the comments. There will be someone going, that was the dumbest thing I ever heard. And it's going to hurt, but you might be worth going, why? Why do you think that was the dumbest thing you ever heard? Now, if they come back with just internet, blah, 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 walk away. But if they come back and go, well, it started this way, and then the chapter ended this way, and I really thought you were going this way, and it blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you could be like, oh, okay, maybe a couple more signposts. Just put a little nugget here and a nugget there in the chapter that kind of keeps people on that trail. So their brains aren't going this way when you're going this way. And then all of a sudden they feel ambushed.
Right.
So get it out there for free. There's so many channels right now. But with that said, the percentage of professional writers who make a living from it has not changed. Even with all the people on Substack saying, I make $100,000 a month. It was like, yes, Robobot, you do. I'm sure you do. Okay. It's like, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Until I see the bank statement. Yeah, you do not. Okay, whatever.
I don't think Stephen King makes that much.
Yeah. Well, you never know. I mean, but the whole thing is, you put it out there. I forgot where I was going with that one. But there's a billion ways to do it, and just get it out there if you need to. There's nothing stopping anyone. That's the thing.
Right.
And people rail against gatekeepers. Well, we're all gatekeepers. I mean, we are. I gatekeep what I read. I'm not getting, someone just puts a book in front of me, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, okay, thanks. I'm going to just start reading that. I'm like, okay, what's it about? That's not my thing.
Right.
Or not my thing right now, whatever it is. We all do that. Editors do that, everybody, publishers, whatever, agents, you bet. But they're all doing their jobs. They're all, if you're an agent, you've got a slush pile. It just keeps going.
Oh, I'm sure.
You got to sacrifice. There are going to be some diamonds you're going to leave on the table. That's all there is to it. I mean, you can only do so much. There's only so much money in publishing. I remember what I was getting back to, which brings it back. There's only so much money in publishing. There's only so much money in writing. And the statistic is still there. 95% of professional writers don't make a full-time living at it, even in this day and age. Oh, yeah. Because you're like, oh, but people are making so much money. Well, there's so many more writers too. So it's all scale. And so the percentages never change.
It almost seems like there's more writers than there are readers almost.
And to a certain extent, yes.
Because if you look at Substack, I joke, I'll say Substack's kind of like a big restaurant that's got 100 chefs, but they don't get any customers. In other words, it's like where the actual just regular readers at, I guess.
It's another version of the echo chamber that's been around forever. It started on the, with especially in the internet, communities and cliques would start to happen. And then everyone's like, oh yeah, I've got 20,000 followers on, on Twitter. And it's like, yeah, great. I got 60,000 followers. I have 100,000 followers on Twitter. It's like, yeah, 90% of those are other writers. Everybody's following everybody because I'll follow you. You bet. Oh yeah, we know. Yeah. And again, you're in the echo chamber, which brings it all back to, yes, can you sell your book? Can you market online? Can you do it that way? Yes, if you can rise above all the other voices, and you know how hard that is. The reality is, like I said before, word of mouth is what sells books.
Right.
Does Twitter sell books? I'm not even on Twitter anymore. I actually got off before X.
I was never on there, so
I got off before it became X because I was already disillusioned. I was on Twitter within the first 4 years of when it started, and it was a whole other thing. It was a whole lot more fun, different. You're learning it and all that, but you can put your book out there on Twitter, and it's just lost as another book link. You could do this, you could do that, you could do this, you could do this, and you can work your butt off marketing, do everything right, and your book doesn't go anywhere because it's not the right time and it's not the right book. And that's how books are successful. People are always like, how'd this happen? It came out of nowhere. It's like, it didn't really come out of nowhere. Someone took a long time to write that book, and then someone edited it, and then it got published, and then it's been around as a concept for a long time. Never came out of nowhere. It just happened to hit the right time, being the right book. That's how you get the bestsellers. That is really how you do it. So if you go into it with that mindset, your disappointment and rejection feelings are going to be a lot lower. And you're going to have a better expectation and you're going to know what kind of writer you are also. Because if it disillusions you, say you write one novel, nothing happens. You write another novel, nothing happens. You write a third novel, nothing happens. And you're finally like, I give up. Nope, I'm done. And walk away. Well, you had those 3 novels. Those were your novels. That's what you wanted to do. And if you're willing to walk away, then maybe professional writing isn't for you. It's just not, we've all had jobs where you try to keep going, okay, I can do it today. I got it. And you're just like, no, I got to get the hell out of here. This is killing, this is draining me. Writing is a job. It is work. And if you hit a wall, don't feel bad about it. You hit your wall. You're done. You did 1, 2, 3. You did, or even just 1, whatever. If you can't stop writing, that's good. That's me. I can't stop creating. I can't stop writing. And my philosophy always has been the only way you fail is if you quit. Publishing is a long game. Writing as a career is a long game. Going to have ups and you're going to have downs. The trick is to get those ups and downs just a little higher on the income every time. Just so, okay, I hit here. Now I'm down here, but at least it's not back down here. And that's the trick. And so if you can just incrementally get it up there, you're golden. Eventually you'll get to where you want to be. But the kicker is you quit, you're never getting anywhere. But if you want to quit, then do so. Don't torture yourself. I have a couple novels I'm supposed to be writing, but it has no deadline or anything like that. But I've just been writing these short stories and long stories, novelettes for 1.5 years and just diving in and doing that. And I'm just like, I'm not in the novel head. I'm not in the novel mood. I'm here. I am solid in these short things, and doing that for a while. And then when I know when I get that novel itch, I'll be like, okay, this manuscript's waiting for me. I got to finish this puppy, but I'll be there. And that's the other thing. Don't force it.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great advice, and it's some of the worst advice that new writers get. I love Stephen King. I truly do.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves On Writing. I am not a fan of that book because what it tells you is how to write like Stephen King. Not story wise, but how to write his ways. Now, he'll break stuff down, but he also taught
his style.
Yeah, he taught. He was, he was what? Taught high school. He taught what? Associate professor. I mean, he taught writing. He taught literature. He taught all of that. So he has a certain way.
Right.
And there's great nuggets in there, but one of the things he says is write every day. Oh, if you are a person who can write every day, write every day. If you are not a person who can write every day, don't write every day and don't beat yourself up over it. The amount of new writer guilt out there, I didn't write today. You see it on Substack. Oh, I just couldn't do it today. And the depression that just comes off that post, you're like, it's okay, dude. I take weekends off generally. Or if I haven't hit what I need to hit, I'll write on the weekend, but that's because it's my living. It's my job. You get the job done. But if I've got everything done, I don't write on the weekends. I hang out with my wife and we go do stuff and we have a life and I don't sweat it. I don't think about it. If a day is bad and I'm sick, literally not feeling good, I don't force myself to get in front of the keyboard. I'm like, what am I going to even puke out there? I literally feel like puking. What is going to happen? I'm probably not going to be at my best. And then I'll spend a whole bunch of time trying to edit it, get it to my best, and then probably hating it anyway. I know me. So know you. That's the kicker. Know you and go, if you don't want to write every day, don't.
Right.
Don't feel guilty. You just don't. The other thing is, then don't expect everything to happen and everything going smooth. Like, I've written and I've been writing, and why isn't it? It's like, well, it's still a job. It's still work. You got to get into a routine, try and do something. If you don't feel like writing, edit. If you don't feel like editing and you're self-publishing, well, start hunting for cover artists or start learning how to make your own covers. If you don't like, keep in it. But don't be a slave to the word count. And everyone's different. That's the whole thing. I have got good friends. It takes a full year or two to write a novel. No problem. They'll be like, if I can crack 500 words today, it'll be a miracle. I was just with a group of horror writers. We did a reading here in Western North Carolina. And someone asked me, like, so what's your average word count a day? I'm like, you don't want to ask me that. I'm an anomaly. I'm weird on that. I'm the other end of the spectrum on that. My average word count a day is between 3,500 and 6,000 words. That's insane. That's not a normal thing. Normal writers don't do that. That's me. That's my brain. That's how I work.
Right.
I've literally written entire novelettes in a day. I've written 15,000 words in a day. But I also trained myself to, when I wrote a novel, it would be a hard slog because you're learning the plot. Even if you've outlined, you're still learning the plot. Trust me. You're learning the plot. You're learning the characters, their voices. You're learning. So the first third of a novel, if I hit 1,200 words a day, I'm happy. I am super happy. By the end, by that third week, I'm writing the last third of that novel that week. It's happening. I'm writing 25,000, 30,000 words that week. It's going down. But I already did the heavy lifting. The characters have voices. I know who they are. They know who they are. I've got the plot. Once you get to the third act or you get to the third of the book, you're just getting to the climax and then you're going. I mean, it's pretty much done. But I had trained myself to sit there and go, I need this done this week so I could get 10,000 words done in a day. And that's translated over. That's just discipline. That's just butt in chair, make it happen. And luckily, after years of storytelling, years of writing and experience, I can still do that even with a short story. I can do a beginning, middle, end. I can write a 5,000 words. I mean, just the other day I wrote 7,500 words. I had written a 10,000 word story, 11,000 word story, and the first third of it I wrote on Wednesday, and I finished it all up on Thursday, and then edited it and sent it off. It's whatever works for you. Probably the best advice I have ever gotten in publishing is from Scott Sigler. And he was he was the original podcast novel. He was the first person to podcast a novel out there, and he's still going. New York Times bestseller. He's got his fandom. He's got all kinds of stuff. Right. Scott's great, but he gave me some advice once, and he said, you're not going to understand publishing in this industry for a good 4 to 5 years of being in it. And of course, my ego was like, I can figure out anything. I'm super fast at this. And about 4.5 years in, I went, light bulb. Oh, now I understand what he's saying. I get it. I didn't know crap these past 4 years or whatever. So this is, okay. And it was, singular to me. It was my experience, my epiphany at 4.5 years. So I can't really say what it was, but it's not going to help anyone else. But trust me, you do this for about 4 or 5 years, right, that's when it starts to kick in, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. And then honestly, that's when the work and foundation starts. Again, it's a long game. Everyone wants to hurry up, write their book. They want to put it out there. They want to publish it. They're going to throw it on the Kindle. It's like I had my cousin look at it. He said it was great. Awesome. And I'm going to throw it out there. I made this cover myself. All right. Got to get it out there. All right. Got to get it out. Get it out. Get it out. That's it's like if just publishing is all you want to do, well, you're in a perfect age right now, because AI can write your book for you and they can puke it out there for you. Yes, you've published and now you've gotten it out there. It's trash. It's complete trash. It's AI trash that you're putting out there. And, and even your first thing, right, it's probably trash too. No offense to everybody out there, but it's probably a little bit of trash. Take the time, put the time. This isn't a race to success, and you're also not racing other authors. We're all in the same boat. Where it's no sales from one does not take away from me. Absolutely. Anyone's success never takes away from me, because it wasn't my time. You know what I mean? If one of my books just totally dies, wasn't the right time and it wasn't the right book. That's all there is to it. It wasn't because so-and-so's selling, 30,000 copies a day over there. It doesn't make, it's like, no, they didn't take anything from me. And that kind of, you can say that, Netflix said that they're battling, basically their enemy is time. That's what they were saying in the beginning is, they need to keep people in there. They need people watching, but they're fighting YouTube. They're fighting this. They're fighting this. They're fighting that. They're fighting books. They don't want people to read. They want people to watch. Yeah. They want none of that stuff. Don't you? How dare you pick up that book? Just pick up the remote. It's there's, even with that whole thing of, well, everybody's time is split. Everybody's time was split before. I mean, there wasn't this amazing, I'm Gen X. There wasn't this life of relaxation and empty time that I had before the media thing blew up and internet and all that. I was still pretty occupied, and I was still reading books. And I'm one of those that only reads one book at a time. My son can read multiple books. My dad used to be he would read multiple books at a time. He'd probably have 6 or 7, going. He'd have Robert B. Parker and, Robert Ludlum, and he would have all those kinds of things. He loved his thrillers and crime and things like that. And he'd have stacks of books all over the house, and he'd pick one up and just start reading. I'm one at a time. You're not squeezing more time out of me for whatever you're trying to get me to watch, read, whatever. I still am a human being, and there's only 24 hours in the day, and that's how it's always been. So everyone whines about how, nowadays no one has the time. Everybody's split. They're on their phones. It's like, that's where that person wants to be. They don't want to be reading your book either. Yeah. So it's there's a lot of excuses, and honestly, it's never changed. It's been the same from day one, just different technology, a little different landscape and all of that. But at the end of the day, you got to write a good book and hope when you publish it, it's the right time. And that's how it is, and that'll never change. So yeah, there's my thesis on the publishing and how it all goes.
Well, I hope a lot of new authors will watch this and get some ideas of what they're going to be in for. I wish I kind of had that knowledge a couple of years ago when I started. Now you of course write in the horror genre. So what was like I always ask this about every guest that I have. What was your introduction to horror? Was it through books or movies or both? What got you interested?
Yes, both, all of it. Being Gen X, that means I was at the dawn of cable. And so, people don't know there used to be a local cable station because that's who ran cable. And they'd have their own little, sometimes public access, whatever, little cable channel. We had one in Oregon, and they played the midnight movie. It would be one of those old Universal black and whites, or it'd be something, who knows what it would be. I remember watching Blackula on there, which I'll say changed my idea of storytelling, because I always thought every single Dracula movie was all canon and all part of it. I didn't understand that there was a different Dracula. I mean, I saw different actors, but I thought they were trying to build on the same story. And then I was like 8 and saw Blackula and went, well, this is different. Oh, you can play with characters and go different directions. That's cool. But anyway, I mean, that helped influence me. But yeah, so all those old horror movies I would watch. I mean, Scooby-Doo, let's face it, it's a mystery show, but it was always horror. There was always ghosts and ghouls and things like that. So it gave you a good little taste of that. But what really got me, I mean, totally. When you think of it, it's always horror. They're just solving the horror mystery. But what really got me going was there was the Saturday morning, ABC Saturday morning, whatever special thing where they adapted a book. And sometimes it would be animated, like Bunnicula was on there, which is also horror too. But they adapted Edgar Allan Poe's Goldbug. And that's more adventure. That's definitely more in the Treasure Island kind of vibe. But that introduced me to Edgar Allan Poe. So the next Monday, I go into the elementary school library. Where's Edgar Allan Poe? And the librarian's like, well, we have Poe. Are you sure you want to read that? I'm like, yes. I saw the Goldbug. I want to read the story. She's like, well, here's one of his collections that has Goldbug in it. And then I read the other stuff. It's Poe. I was in elementary school. So much flew over my head, but I got the vibe. I totally got the vibe. And that really started me on my whole horror thing. And so I would read all kinds of those middle grade and YA horror stuff that came out. And then this was kind of before Goosebumps, I think was my age. It was right before Goosebumps. So I never had the luxury of that. I was already moving on to other stuff. And then, as you grow and then you get into Lovecraft, and, as problematic as that man is, he built a universe that has influenced so much of horror. Had a crazy ass way of writing. His writing style was very his way of doing it. You're like, okay, well, you sure described that desk. That's a scary desk, dude. It's like, okay. And, so Lovecraft and then King, I got into, and then you just start progressing from there. And horror's always been my love. I found zombies when Night of the Living Dead, when Dawn of the Dead came out. I had lived next to some kids whose dad was a sheriff's deputy from LA County, and then they moved up to Oregon and was a sheriff's deputy there. But he confiscated, when he was in LA, a whole bunch of bootleg VHS tapes and then never turned them in. So I was able to watch Dawn of the Dead on one of those bootleg tapes before it was out on video, kind of thing. And so that was, I mean, terrified me, but once again gave me a whole new, like Blackula did, gave me a whole new thing of like, this is saying something a little different. I didn't understand when I saw it. I was 6th grade. I didn't understand metaphor. I didn't understand that, Dawn of the Dead was really about American consumerism and how we are basically just, we're going to consume, it was right in your face consumerism as something's consuming humans, but it was because it's set in the mall and it's showing people, this is what they're used to. Why are they going there? Why are these zombies going there? Because they're conditioned to do that. And so it was saying something there. I was like, oh, horror can say something too. Okay. And all of those steps, they just lead to it. And you can do anything with horror. It can be any genre, romantic horror, comedy horror, sci-fi horror, gothic horror, cosmic Lovecraftian. I mean, it can be any horror. Just needs to unsettle you. It needs to be horrific at times, horrible at times, needs to make you feel. Do you have to be terrified? Do you have to be scared? No, but you should be pretty uneasy and not feeling exactly like on solid foundation. You need, there's things. You don't have to do jump scares. You don't have to do gore. I do them when I need to if the story calls for it. But horror can be anything. And the other part of that is, in my opinion, horror is the other side of the coin. What's on the other side? Comedy. And I love comedy, and I've always been a smart ass my entire life. I grew up with a dad who could come with a one-liner and just destroy you in seconds. And everybody's laughing, but then you're like, ow, that kind of hurt. And so, but it's the exact same timing. It's just the two different things, and it releases the exact same endorphins. Horror and comedy, you laugh.
And it's the same progression too.
It's the same thing. It's set up, you get the body and then punchline. And that's comedy. And the punchline is the scare in horror or the unsettling piece or whatever, the reveal or whatever it is. Right. You want to see some of the best combination of both? Watch Psycho. I mean, some of Norman Bates' lines and his looks and things like that, that's just pure comic gold. I mean, when he pushes the car into the pond and it stops and doesn't quite sink, the look on his face, and then he kind of like looks around, is like, oh, okay. I mean, that's hilarious. It's comic gold, but that's the beauty. That's why they work so well. That's why Jordan Peele is Jordan Peele now, because he always wanted to do horror and then got into comedy because that's how he exercised that exact same muscle and then flipped it. And everyone's like, where did this come from? And anyone who writes horror and writes comedy and writes horror comedy goes, he's always been there. You haven't been paying attention. If you watch Key and Peele, you can see it coming. There's some horror comedy. They play with some tropes. They play with all kinds of stuff. And so it was no surprise that he went the horror route. And his production company is called Monkey's Paw, which is one of the most classic horror stories. And I don't know if it's still taught, but I was taught that in middle school, 6th grade, Monkey's Paw. Which is probably another reason I'm really good at
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah. All it is, a older couple lose their son. Someone gives them a deal, and there's a monkey paw with 3 fingers. You can make a wish. Every time you make a wish, one of the fingers goes down. So that's creepy. It's a severed monkey paw. It's doing all that, but you had to pay attention to the wording. It was a devil's deal kind of thing, devil's bargain sort of thing. If you weren't paying attention to how you worded it, it was very literal. And so that got me thinking that way too. It was like, oh, subtext. That teaches you subtext. Pay attention to what you say. Words are important. Words matter. Monkey's Paw was probably a big influence too, because it's a classic. It has the perfect beginning, middle, end. Whether there's resolution, that's irrelevant. You don't have to. That's the one thing that's also good about horror. You don't always have to resolve everything. Sometimes leaving it unresolved is the way it needs to end. Because sometimes you can't. Sometimes you've just blown everything up story and character wise, that all that's left is the shrapnel, and you're going to leave the reader with the shrapnel, and they're going to close the book and go, okay, I got to think about that for a bit. Great. I did my job.
Well, it's just like the ending to John Carpenter's The Thing. It's like they're both sitting there. The
Still
camp's in
debated
ruin.
today.
They're the last two left. I know.
Yeah.
We'll never know.
Never know.
Yeah.
Although they've hinted at it, at things of what's happened,
really
over the years.
Because it was still a fantastic movie.
It's one of my favorite movies. If anyone out there has not seen John Carpenter's The Thing, which was destroyed, it was a bomb, a complete flop at the theater, and the critics hated it. Which is ridiculous because it is a masterpiece. It truly is. And holds up today because I've literally watched it, and my kids have watched it, and they've watched it on their own. Like, I mean, just a couple weeks ago, my daughter was like, her boyfriend, she's like, he hadn't seen The Thing. So I showed it to him, and he's just looking at me going, dude, the head spider. Oh, and it's like, yeah, the practical effects still hold up. Everything about that movie still holds up. You want to learn horror and what you can do and get away with and really go for it. Yeah, watch The Thing. For sure. Agreed.
Oh, for sure. It's funny. I remember when The Thing came out, and I was probably about 8 years old, I think. And I'm like, we're in the movie lobby, and I'm like pointing at that. Come on, Mom, can we go see that? I'm like, no, we're going to go see E.T. Part of the reason why it was a flop, it went head to head against E.T. when it was released. Had they released it, say, a few months earlier, it might have been a much bigger success. But
yeah,
I know I still wanted to go see The Thing, but
yeah,
I like E.T. So.
We didn't see it in the theater. I think I remember the first time I saw it was probably when it came out on HBO, because it was always the new movie of the week. It was probably where I saw that and saw it with my the whole family and everything. And I was definitely not old enough at that time to be watching that, but that was that's Gen X. God, I remember my parents rented Cat People. And it was like, that is not appropriate for my age whatsoever. It's like, are you kidding me? But I remember seeing
the newer one with Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah, Malcolm McDowell and Natasha Kinski. Paul Schrader, who directed and wrote it. It's like, really? It's like, here's Taxi Driver guy, the writer of Taxi Driver, makes a remake of Cat People because it's the old one, and then remakes it in
that's why I asked
the most messed up way possible. And no small child should have been watching that. But those were the days you watched what was on. I mean, it was so exciting. Something came on HBO. Something just came out on VHS. And got that. So I remember watching The Thing at home and just being blown away as a kid, and it never went away. And every time I revisited, I probably didn't actually watch it again until my early 20s. I was running a chain of video stores at that time, so I had access to everything, which was awesome. Yeah. Talk about movie education. That's like and this was Eugene, Oregon, which is very counterculture, very artistic, and so it wasn't like walking the video stores I managed wasn't like walking into a Blockbuster. It wasn't sterile stuff. There was deep cuts on those shelves of all kinds of wild things. And so it was outstanding. But I remember seeing The Thing and going, maybe I should try this again, and threw it up on, because after 9 you could have R-rated movies. Even though we were independent, it was still nice because you didn't want to get yelled at by the parents with kids. And so I'd put it on there.
Yeah.
And I could never finish it because someone would come in and go, "Oh, The Thing. Oh, is that available?" And I'm just like, eject. Yeah, here you go. And I have to wait until it would come back. So I stopped putting it on and was finally like, I'm just taking it home. I'm going to watch it. Then I'll put it on again and let everyone rent it. But it held up. every single time I've watched that movie, it holds up, and that's
yeah.
what counts. That's what matters. That's the beauty of those tales, and old horror, new horror, everybody's building on it. There's some amazing stuff. I honestly think movies wise, we're in a horror renaissance right now. We are lucky to be alive. There are some amazing writers and directors who are creating quality horror. There's still schlock. There always will be. Horror is easy to do low budget. It's not easy to do well low budget, but at the same time, sometimes you get the best horror from low budget because of the invention that has to go with that, the creativity that has to go into making that low budget film actually work. So we've got it all. And Blumhouse, I mean, they really blew it up. They've done a great job, and they've bet on creators. They bet on a lot of people, and then you get things like, Barbarian came out, and everyone was like, "Whoa, where did this come from?" And I don't know if you've seen Weapons. I saw Weapons, his second movie. Freaking brilliant!
Yet,
I love
that. I've heard about it.
It is outstanding, and I'm actually going to go see it. I saw it by myself just because of circumstances, and then I'm going to go see it again with the fam tomorrow, because I'm like, okay, I got to watch it as a viewer. I got to, just as a horror fan, and just sit there, and now I'm going to watch it as a writer. And see how exactly put it all together, the structure of it all, and then look for all the things that I had missed before, because but I mean, that's just some outstanding stuff. Even Megan, when Megan came out, the fact that it was PG-13, and I have nothing against PG-13 horror. I have nothing against PG horror. I mean, again, Gen X, Disney churned out PG horror, in the late 70s and early 80s. I mean, you had Watcher in the Woods. You had The Black Hole. If you've ever watched The Black Hole and think that's just sci-fi, no, it is not. That is a horror movie right there. And it was PG, and Disney put that thing out. And I remember watching that as a kid going,
Escape from Witch Mountain.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's that fantastical, that they did good melding genres, horror, sci-fi, and that would be like horror, sci-fi, fantasy, almost, stuff. But it was around. So I think you can make great horror for any age, truly and honestly.
Sure.
Yeah, and right now it's right now horror's where it's at, and I'm glad I'm there.
Well, it's certainly doing as far as quality goes. I think it's doing a lot better than other genres right now, because we were talking about comedies, and there don't seem to be a whole lot of good comedies being made these days. I kind of struggle even to think of the last good one that I even watched.
And that's
the whole Marvel superhero thing seems to be going downhill.
Yeah,
but horror remains.
Horror remains, and Jason Blum actually did a good talk. I can't remember at what conference a few weeks ago, and just helped explain that horror has been on an upswing for 20 years now. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty good. Has it been in the zeitgeist for 20 years? No, it ebbs and flows in that, but the profitability and success of the genre, it's a line up. For 20 years it's been a line up, and we're finally at that kind of inflection point where it's hard. Okay, it's easy to watch comedies streaming. It's easy to do it, and you're like, do I really want to spend that money on that? Do I really want to spend the money and go and sit in a theater and see something that I could just see? There's nothing on the screen that requires this huge screen. The only thing is just being able to laugh with other people. That changes how you perceive a movie, is when other people are laughing around you. Laughter is contagious. So is fear. Fear is contagious.
Yes,
but that's the one difference between comedy and horror in movies right now, and why horror is resonating. Have there been a couple bombs? Sure, there always will be. Always will be. But this year has been pretty good. Last year was great too.
Everyone's always going to find.
People
are always going to like different things and whatnot. Like, trust me, there's some movies that a lot of people like that I don't, and there's movies that I like that a lot of people don't. So it goes that way. But like you said, with horror, there's something for everyone because there's so many different subgenres to it.
And it's also a genre that really does great on the big screen. Even if it's a small horror movie, it's different on the big screen. Visually, the art medium itself, a horror movie on a big screen, you're like, oh, I'm in it. I'm in, and it's surround sound, the whole thing. You're in it, and it makes a difference. So I'm not surprised horror is still doing great at theaters, because it is part of the experience, 100%. So is comedy, yes,
right.
But it's easier for you to justify. This isn't a big spectacle movie. I don't need this giant screen. Everybody's got big screens at home. That's good enough, and that's unfortunate. Right. I think there will be more comedies coming out, but I think horror is just going to keep going up and up and up. It'll plateau here and there, but it's not. I don't ever see it falling just because it's entrenched in every culture on the planet. They have their horror and their stories of what's in the dark. Yeah. And horror also translates a lot better internationally too. American comedy, American humor doesn't always translate. So there's that. But getting the crap scared out of you, everybody knows that. What's scary is scary. Hands down. And let's face it, it could be in a whole other language. Doesn't matter. If the music and everything's right, something's coming. You're not even hearing the other language. You're hiding as something's coming because it's coming. Because it's the international language right there. So yeah. I think I love being in horror. I'm going to stay in horror for a while, and we'll see how it goes.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's a good stopping point for this evening. Jake, I want to really thank you for coming on there. Really gave me a little bit of almost felt like I was sitting at a seminar here, but I hope that everyone else that watches this will, and I mean that really, it's nice to hear other authors talk about their experiences and what their, now I'm like lost for words now, but what their advice is and what their experiences are and how that can translate, whether it's mine or anybody else's. I think it's good conversation to have.
It's such a solitary profession. That's the one thing, being a writer.
Because it's as we know, it's a jam-packed industry right now.
Yeah, definitely. So
excellent. Well, everyone, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, check out Jake's Substack page, and also also his podcast too. That was, once again, that podcast was called.
I'm going to be getting back into it, but my Substack, you can just go to jakebible.substack.com. You can go onto Spotify. You can do that. I actually re-released my original podcast of my first novel in there. Awesome. You find it now as Brain Squeezings. It was writing in suburbia, and then I moved out of suburbia, and I was like, well, that just doesn't feel right anymore. So now it's Brain Squeezings. You can find it. You search Jake Bible. It's one of those names that doesn't allow anonymity. So there aren't a whole lot of us out there. I think there's a high school quarterback in Ohio named Jake Bible, and that's like the only other one you'll find if you Google. But yeah, you can go to my Substack or jakebible.com. There's always links to all my novels and everything on there too. Either way. Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Jake, and thanks for everyone for watching, and we will see everyone next time. Thank you, everyone.